Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us, one of our favorite guests. Actually, he's gotten more video views than anyone else on USA Watchdog. He is the publisher of the Trends Journal, Gerald Celente. Mr. Celente, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me back, Greg.
Well, I know why you're popular. You're popular because you write a lot. And I want to start, though, with the most current event, this Ed Snowden catch me if you can type scenario, where they managed to get this massive spy program, PRISM, that they're spying on all Americans and just about everybody else in the world off the front page to this guy's a fugitive for justice. And isn't it terrible that China and Russia are shielding Ed Snowden? Well, isn't it terrible that China and Russia are protecting a whistleblower? What do you say about this?
Oh, you really nailed it. Who would have ever thought that to find freedom, someone would have to go to communist China or Russia as to be protected? Well, actually, Greg, I have a Trends Journal here from a year ago. What's going on with Snowden is actually no news at all. There's nothing new that he said. What did he say? What great secrets did he break that makes him this great fugitive? This was from last year's Trends Journal, the spring edition, 2012, over a year ago. I don't know if you remember that picture.
I remember it.
Yeah, next train to Auschwitz, all aboard, kiss those calories goodbye. And we were talking about how Americans are losing their right, and they're being led to their death camps. And they're not, metaphorically speaking, and not doing anything about it to stop it. So here's the story we did on Snowden, a year and a half before Snowden made the news. Without the public really noticing or caring enough to notice, Obama's 2012 had become Orwell's 1984. Big Brother had arrogated to himself full power to do as he pleased. So what? What was the big deal? Does anyone really care? Why should anybody have to know about the NDAA or the NDRP executive order? And then we go on to say, of course, how they are stealing the rights. U.S. eases rule on use of data on Americans. And we go taking another page from Orwell's fictional Big Brother, who watched every move everybody made and knew every thought they had. Attorney General Eric Holder was putting in place the surveillance mechanisms that would give the United States government similarly unrestricted power, utilizing technology unimaginable to Orwell, as he wrote back in 1948. Holder installed an upgraded 2.0 surveillance system that allowed the government to keep tabs on everyone for whatever reason they chose. And we go on, I won't read you all of it, but just to sum it up. And then we have all aboard the Auschwitz Express. In 2012, there were sporadic cries for freedom, but they were mostly muted. The media barely covered Washington's assault on constitutional rights, and when they did, it was in sterile, dispassionate, non-committal, no big deal tone, and devoid of any discussion about how these assaults would impact everybody on every level. Apart from the minority of the want-to-knows, for example, Greg, the people that watch your show, the majority didn't want to know, didn't know, and if they were told, either would not believe what they were being told or wouldn't know what it meant when you told them. Bigger than Big Brother, far more comprehensive and insidious than the most repressive police state of the 20th century. Since 9/11, Big Bro USA has been secretly compiling vast databases of private information on you. Telephone conversations, personal emails, visited websites, Google searches, text messages, credit card transactions, mobile phones, GPS locations, travel itineraries, Facebook activities, medical records, traffic tickets, surveillance camera footage, and online purchases. What did Snowden say that we didn't write about over a year ago?
It's all about control, is it not? I mean, they've also managed to push off this giant unconstitutional data collection network they have and get it onto this catch me if you can type scenario where, you know, this guy is being protected, a whistleblower is being protected by China and Russia. I mean, can't anybody see how wrong that is?
Well, again, what did he divulge that we didn't write about a year ago? And here's the real deal on this, just so we understand this. This has nothing to do with Snowden breaking this news and unleashing information that's going to help the terrorists, and we have to bring them to justice. According to the Financial Times, we the people spend $80 billion on surveillance and data mining to watch we the people. And who's making the money? According to the Financial Times, 850,000 government contractors. Capisce? And who's the head of the biggest government contractor in this business? Couldn't be Mike McConnell, could it? Mike McConnell, who's he? Why, he is the CEO of Booz Allen. Perfect name, Booz Allen. Hamilton. Where did he come from? Son of a gun. He was the National Security Director under Bill Slick Willie Clinton from 1992 to 1996. All this is another arm of the military security industrial complex stealing our money so they could enrich themselves and their friends in the never-ending spinning revolving door. You see the new immigration law that was passed. There's going to be another, $36 billion of our dough going to government contractors to make sure nobody gets over that border. It's the same thing that President Dwight D. Eisenhower warned us all about as he was leaving office. You know, that lefty pinko commie, that five-star general, the supreme commander of the Allied forces during World War II, and two-term Republican presidents. I say that in jest, all you trolls out there that might be listening, about pinko commie, to make the point that he warned us that the military-industrial complex was robbing us of the genius of our scientists, the sweat of our laborers, and the future of our children. Here we are, 2013, Big Bro is watching you.
I'm glad you brought it down to the financial question, because that's what they're doing, stealing our dough, as you say. And, we've had this rise in interest rates, and everything's fine as long as we can print money. But we're getting down to the point where Ben Bernanke is saying we're going to, ease up on that tapering, which is, he's not even saying he's going to stop it. He's just saying he's going to ease up. Of course, the guys in the banks are going to make all the money. And incidentally, if you launder money for Iran or Mexican or Venezuelan or any of these drug cartels, Mexican drug cartels or Iran, if you launder money for them, like Standard Charter or HSBC, just a fine for you. Evidently, that's not a national security issue.
No. And the interest rates is, you're watching what's going on around the world. We've said this before. Again, we wrote history before it happened. We said as the United States slows down and our imports slow down, and as Europeans slow down on their imports, you're going to start seeing a slowdown in China. If the U.S. and Europeans don't buy, China doesn't manufacture. If China doesn't manufacture, Australia, Canada, Chile, Brazil, and other natural resource exporting countries, they don't export. It's a global slowdown, and you're going to see one scheme after another. Look, the LIBOR scandals, the money washing scandals, Nobody does hard time for any of it. The banks get a slap on the wrist, and life goes on as usual.
What about gold and silver? I mean, they're printing all this money. They say they're hinting at stopping. They're not. If they do, the housing market will collapse. Interest rates will skyrocket. Our national debt will skyrocket. The economy lives on cheap borrowed money. Car loans, by 40% at least, are subprime. Now they're doing no money down loans for houses again. If we can't print money, if interest rates rise, isn't this the big gutting of America that's coming?
Here it is in the last edition of the Trends Journal. The interest rate recovery. For most American, we go on to say that that the jobs that have been created have all been low-paying jobs since the Great Recession happened. Middle-class jobs were lost. And as you point out, the only thing that's keeping this afloat, and as we wrote several weeks ago when we came out with the Trends Journal, the spring edition, is that the only thing that's keeping this afloat is our low interest rates and the stimulus, which is basically pumping in cheap money. No, it's going to have to end.
When it ends, are we going to have a collapse?
Yes.
Yes.
Because there's nothing that could sustain it. And I believe what's going to happen, you're seeing it in China. The Chinese government's refusing to pump up the economy. There's a liquidity crisis and a debt crisis going on. You know, they're out of control over there. And the government knows that they can't keep it going. So they're trying to rein it in. And instead of doing that when it happened in 2008, they dumped all this cheap money into the system. So now at some point they're going to have to pull back on it. They have to. Interest rates are going to skyrocket. You pointed it out with the auto loans. What is HFA loaning people 5% down?
FHA. I think it's less than that. I just talked to somebody today who cut my hair, said she got a no money loan for a house in North Carolina. No money loan.
There you
go.
No
money
go.
Down.
So, and of course we're backing it with the FHA, us. You know, we're the ones that got to pick up the tab. So what's going to happen when interest rates go up?
And that's what I want you to kind of vision, to take a look at the vision and tell me what it looks like for the man on the street when we start seeing, 6, 7, 8% home loans and credit card rates going back up higher than what they are now, and the cheap money drying up. What's the economy going to look like when we have this crash that you say is coming?
It's going to be worse than the panic of '08. It'll be deeper, it'll be more painful, and there's a reason why. Because they will not be able to pull off the stimulus game again. Everybody got hip to it, and it didn't work. You read even the Financial Times, the major media, CNBC, Bloomberg, everyone will now admit that the stimulus only bought borrowed time. So the stimulus game doesn't work anymore, and the governments are so in debt, they can't have the fiscal policy. So you have no monetary policy, and you have no fiscal policy to stimulate the economy. We go into the Greatest Depression. But they will try, I believe, to boost it some way. And that's when I believe gold and silver prices will again skyrocket. They can stay low, Greg, I believe, for another several months, even a year. But I don't see them staying down forever. I don't give financial advice. I'm a long-term buyer and a long-term holder of gold. Why would I want this digital paper not worth the paper it's not printed on? And number two, on this whole area of gold and the economy, I believe they're going to take us to war, just like they did during the Great Depression. When all else fails, they take you to war. And we're seeing the war drums beating louder and louder throughout the Middle East as the Middle East is collapsing. Look what's going on now over in Egypt. You're seeing the military getting re-involved. There's massive demonstrations that are going to happen in a couple of days. Last week there were massive demonstrations on the pro-Islamic end. You look what's happening in Libya, it's up for grabs. Hey, great job that Nobel Peace Prize winner Obama did with that humanitarian mission, huh? Al-Qaeda and al-Nusra are all over the place. Total countries destabilized. And then Yemen's going under. Bahrain's up for grabs very soon. They can't control that situation. And, of course, the big wild card is Syria. And now the United States, again, our Nobel Peace Prize winning president, as we the people in the United States are watching cities from Trenton to Camden, from East St. Louis to Detroit and other places going under. Hey, how about almost $1 billion for those wonderful Syrian rebels without a cause? So that, I believe, is going to destabilize the entire Middle East.
Al-Qaeda is what it is. I mean, they can't put Al-Qaeda and the Syrian rebels in the same. I mean, they're so heavily involved in Syria. Two top Al-Qaeda operators had their picture taken with John McCain 2 or 3, 4 weeks ago. I mean, that's how heavily involved Al-Qaeda is. We're arming Al-Qaeda. Isn't that the people we're supposed to be at war against? Iran funds Hezbollah. When, Deloitte helped Standard Chartered hide money laundering for Iran, they're funding Hezbollah. Aren't those people part of the people we're fighting against? Aren't they terrorists? And so my question to you is, is this going to be a world war? I mean, are they just saying, well, forget it. We're going to have a world war. We're going to get the people who can fight for us, no matter who they are.
Look, let's get this straight. We have the same military-industrial complex and the same governmental sociopaths that brought us the Vietnam War that we lost 58,000 people, killed an estimated 3 million Vietnamese, and poisoned their country with Agent Orange and napalm. Then they took us on the Afghan War. Wonderful. Great job, guys. 12 years later, thousands dead, maimed, ruined for life, destroyed the country. Hey, how about Iraq? Oh, on Monday, another 41 dead. Yeah, every day you pick up the paper. Hey, it's better off without Saddam Hussein, I tell you. And you forget about that he never had weapons of mass destruction and ties to Al-Qaeda. Oh, and then Libya, as I mentioned. Oh, that wasn't a war, though. That was a time-limited, scope-limited kinetic action, according to the White House mouthpiece, James Carney. And Carney, by the way, is the slang word for carnival man. Fits him to a T. And then, of course, now they're going into Syria. Who in their right mind would believe that the United States military and the world leaders who get us into these wars are somehow now going to, after going 0 for 4, going to come out victoriously on 0 for 5? It's going to destabilize the entire Middle East. It will be the beginning of World War III. And to paraphrase what Einstein said, and you don't have to be Einstein to figure this out, he said he didn't know how World War III would be fought, but he knew that World War IV would be fought with rocks. And that's what these crazy people are leading us to.
Well, I want to get back to the financial question, because the financial question is going to be the reason why we go to war. And you have pointed this out on more than one occasion to cover up stuff. Are we going to have bail-ins in America? I mean, somebody told me, get an expert to tell us what this bail-in situation will look like. I don't know if you know this. The FDIC, I called the FDIC. I looked it up on their website, went over with somebody on the phone with it. $10.8 trillion. This is just not their liabilities, just deposits. $10.8 trillion in deposits and $33 billion in the Deposit Insurance Fund, the DIF. That's like $33 to insure $10,800 worth of risk. And so my question is, when this collapse happens, are your bank accounts safe? Are your brokerage accounts safe? Somebody asked me about, well, if the bank accounts aren't safe, maybe I can put it in a brokerage account. And I said, that's worse. What do you say about how much money people are going to lose in this and how much or access to their money?
Oh, well, I agree with you. It's worse than a brokerage account because I got my money stolen by MF Global with John the Slime Corzine, who was the head of the show over there.
Did you ever get very much money back? What did you get
back?
I
got over 90% back. But still, I took a loss, and a lot of aggravation. And there was no need for it. It was in a segregated account that they had no business going into. So that answers your question, whether a bank or a brokerage, the bail-in. As you well know, the Europeans had just had a meeting last week, ended on Sunday night. and they decided that they're going to protect at this point under 100 billion euros or less.
100,000.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yes, 100,000. That's okay.
Yeah,
Hey, you know, the numbers are so huge. I mean,
yeah, that's even more money than Bill Gates.
Right.
Yeah, 100,000 euros. And the in the United States, as you know, it's $250,000. I believe that they will live by that. However, I also believe what they'll do is they'll call a bank holiday, like they did in 1933, and devalue the currency. Hey, we're going to back it. Don't worry about it. It just won't be worth as much. So in 1933, for example, they made people turn in all their gold, as you well know. And I believe it was, what, about $20.62 an ounce or something like that.
2067, yes, sir.
That they had to sell it back to the feds
That's
too.
right.
And then after they got it all in, they repegged the price to $35 an ounce.
Yep.
And in those days, the dollar was pegged to gold, which means that you just lost 70% of your purchasing power. It was a devaluation of the currency.
Do you think we're going to get that again?
Yeah, devaluation, yes. They'll say, hey, we're going to back it. Hey, the Fed, they could print money all day long. But it'll devalue currency you're going to get back. So the sheeple won't know what hit them until after it's too late.
There's all kinds of rumors on the internet that they say that they're going to have a bank holiday sometime this fall or sometime early next year. Do you have any sense of timing for because the economic calamity is going to precede the war scenario you're talking about? When do you think we have, you know, the first big suck down, you know, the first big takedown in this phony propped up $85 billion a month money printing Fed nirvana?
You know, it's hard to say, Greg, but it necessarily doesn't precede war, because they could use, quote, terrorism or war as a pretext to call a bank holiday. You don't forget, you know, for all those people out there that may not remember, when 9/11 happened, they closed down Wall Street for a week.
Yeah.
And I had money in certificates of deposit that I wanted to get out, because I didn't know if they were going to hit Indian Point, which is just south of us over here.
That's the nuclear power plant.
Exactly, 45 minutes north of Ground Zero. And if they whack that, again, I don't know, you know, without going into conspiracy theory or any of that, if that thing went up, there would be chaos like you've never seen in history. So I was ready to go north to Canada, and I wanted to get my money out of my guns, gold, and a getaway plan. The Gerald Celente-The's GC's 3Gs. But when I went to wire transfer my money into my bank account at a Fleet Bank, which there's gone now, they said, no, Wall Street is closed, and you have certificates of deposit, and they're financial instruments, and you can't get it out until Wall Street reopens. So I'm mentioning that because they can use a false flag or real terrorist attack as an excuse to close the banks and blame it on those terrorists for making the problems that we have. And by the way, I want to make this clear as well. You know, when the UK or US get attacked, they always call it terrorism. What is it when the United States or UK or other countries invade and occupy foreign nations? Isn't that terrorism?
Yeah.
Who's the bigger terrorist over here? How many people have been killed by America and NATO since 9/11? How many? You look at the numbers, and depending on whose numbers you're looking at, it's in the low several hundred thousands.
I mean, they must be worried about this financial problem so much, and I think this is the reason why they've bought all this ammunition, why they've got these armored personnel carriers, why they want to put drones in the skies, you know, why they're doing this massive surveillance program. I think they're worried about losing power, and they're worried about chaos and calamity and civil unrest and violent civil unrest. Are you thinking we're going to have some pretty violent civil unrest? I mean, are people going to die over all this?
Here you go. All aboard. Next train to Auschwitz. Yeah, they're going to start. There'll be civil unrest, but, you know, it's very hard in the United States to see it. And with the people that become, you know, I was reading some numbers. You know, it's like something like, you know, over 70% of the people are on prescription drugs. Most of the prescription drugs they're on, like, you know, psychotropic drugs, painkillers. I mean, look what this country looks like.
Antidepressants, the whole realm of antidepressants, which all these shooters supposedly were taking some sort. Almost all were taking some sort of Colorado, Sandy Hook, Newtown.
All of them. As we know from the information that they will release, were on psychotropic drugs.
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying is the country's brain dead. I mean, look what they're doing with this Snowden thing. You go back to, I have it right here. It's worth looking at. I mean, you go back to Tuesday's New York Times. The entire middle of the paper is filled with all of this Snowden stuff. Page after page after page. You can't get enough of it. I mean, you have to see this. 2 full pages. Empty seat deepens the mystery in Moscow. Leaker's flight raises already high tensions between U.S., Russia, and China. I mean, a whole page, and then you go on to the other one, and this is why I call the New York Times, they call themselves the paper of record. Try toilet paper of record. Or as we would have said in the Bronx, toilet paper of record. Leaker's hasty exit started with pizza at cramped hideout. Even before case of NSA leaker, he brought back Assange. Remained on U.S. radar. So, and the front page story, by the way, as you can't pay your bills, 76% of the people, according to the latest Gallup poll, are living paycheck to paycheck. As things are going down the crapper, big front page story. Trial begins in the killing of Trayvon Martin. Are the Americans going to get to the streets? They can't get off their butts. Look what they've become.
Well, they will.
We're the most obese nation on the planet.
When the check stops, or the check stops buying, when gas is $15 a gallon, a loaf of bread is $20.50, I think they'll wake up. So I guess your prediction is either war or financial calamity or both in the next year and a half. Could it happen this year?
It could happen it could happen next week.
What about this big rise in interest rates? Is that a bad trend? Is that a warning sign? Danger, 10-year Treasury, which it's still only 2.5% to 2.6%, somewhere in the neighborhood, but it was 1.63% in May.
Look,
so it was a big jump, percentage-wise, in a short amount of time. Is that something that your trend research is saying, danger, warning, this is a problem?
It's a huge problem. The only reason there's been any kind of recovery, as I mentioned, is it's an interest rate recovery. Look, last year I bought a building. I got a residential loan locked in for 15 years at 2.875. Look at the 30-year now. Of course, that was a 15-year. A 30-year's gone from what, about 3-something, now it's over 4.
Yeah.
Since May.
Yeah.
And now they're saying, well, they're still low comparatively to where they were before the panic. So what were they before the panic? 6, 7?
Yeah.
All right. But before the panic, there was a boom. Now we're not in a boom. We have declining real income. We have jobs still being lost. So yes, they're relatively high in comparison when you look back. There is not going to be any recovery as long as interest rates go up. There's never going to be a recovery as long as we keep shipping our jobs overseas. And, it's very funny, actually. We're going to be writing about it in the next Trends Journal. Go back to the days of Calvin Coolidge. They used to say the business of America is business. Now, again, we're talking about the Snowden thing and what's going on in America. The business of America has become war. So as long as the business of America becomes war, there's not going to be any recovery. It has to be a total retrenchment and a restoration of America before we see any kind of job creation. The rest is just short-term fiscal and monetary manipulation.
Gerald Celente, the publisher of the Trends Journal. Hey, thanks for coming on USA Watchdog for a really sharp interview. Thank you so much, sir.
Always great being on with you, Greg. Thanks for having me.